Are you tired of the same old boring routine? Well, get yourself a Yandere. A Yandere is just the kind of person you need in order to spark up some excitement in your life. You won't have a need for friends or contact with the outside world anymore, as a Yandere will be everything you ever need in life and more. You'll never be bored with your daily routine ever again, as a Yandere will make sure that only she will make the cut. October, the spookiest month of the year. The air gets chillier while pumpkin spice invades every coffee shop across the globe, but the most exciting part of the month, Halloween, is fast approaching, bringing out all the decorations and costumes associated with pumpkins, skeletons, ghosts, you name it. Which is why I think this month is very fitting for me to take a break from my anime reviews to talk about a topic that I hold dear to my heart, yanderes. If you've been in the anime community for quite some time now, this term is probably familiar to you already, but in case you didn't know, a yandere is a term used to label a character who is often infatuated with another person to the point it causes them to react to situations in extreme ways that wouldn't be deemed normal in most cases of just being love-struck. For example, let's say you like someone a lot, so you constantly want to hold their hand in public, which is a pretty normal thing to do, but then you take it to the next level by kidnapping your significant other in order to have them all to yourself, and you're willing to harm anyone that tries to stop you. That's a bit of a yandere tendency if I've ever seen one. Now in reality, these kinds of characters will be deemed undesirable and you should never get involved with one, probably, but in pieces of fiction such as anime, these kinds of characters can be not only beneficial, but sometimes even necessary for a franchise to push itself further in creativity, oftentimes leading to a positive reaction from the fans. Which is why today I'm going to be explaining my own reasons why I love yanderes and the bloody good time these characters can bring. Now in most cases when you encounter a character who turns out to be a yandere in a series, you usually can figure it out pretty quickly beforehand through subtle hints with how they pose or through their facial cues, and when they do finally let that crazy side of them out, a sense of excitement is often followed, as the most common thought that comes to mind when they showcase this behavior is, oh gosh, what are they gonna do now? The reason for that is because yanderes are very unpredictable with their actions, whether it be in the best interest of their beloved or to eliminate any potential threat to their love, and when that nature is exposed, all common sense can be thrown out the window because that scene can go from a simple discussion to a rather disturbing act of violence within seconds, often in ways you wouldn't predict, as a normal character wouldn't even think to do these kinds of acts like a yandere would. These characters never stop with just the one action either, and that can become very apparent quickly if the series allows them to continue their actions, which is a very smart thing a series can actually have happen. While the main focus of the series doesn't have to be on this character, having a couple episodes or so with the audience constantly wondering how far this character will go with their actions is a way to keep them intrigued and invested longer in the series, and oftentimes if a series' main focus is on a yandere character, you're gonna have people talking about that character for decades to come, as they won't be able to forget anything that character ever did. Another reason that makes them so memorable, and is also arguably the most popular aspect of a yandere, is how well they are designed as characters. In most cases, the characterization of a yandere is often portrayed as someone who has more of a cutesy design compared to a normal person, which is often the focal point when they are first being discussed on screen. But something that is cleverly done throughout the introduction of a yandere is when you start to notice the subtle things about them that don't really line up with how they are conveying themselves, which is also very much tied to the mentality aspect I mentioned earlier. When that inevitable scene where they decide to be their true selves arrives, you are greeted with a total 180 on their facial expressions, which showcases the instability they've been carrying this entire time, and gosh golly will these designs stick with you afterwards. From the cute sadistic smiles that are showcased or the crazed wide-eyed laughter that you hear, the idea of such cutesy designs being transformed into warped, unstable versions of themselves is one that most fans will remember, and often when they start to grow more fond of the character because of the creepy cute transformation that they went through. Like, come on, who wouldn't want to be stabbed by a cute crazy gal? The pinnacle moment of how far a yandere will go is often showcased when the subject of their desire is in danger or they feel like their relationship is being threatened, leading yanderes to showcase their loyalty without a second thought by doing anything and everything they can to protect them, which is actually something I can admire about a character who dedicates themselves to their love, for the most part anyway. Multiple characters throughout series after series have moments where their loyalty comes into question, but most of the time when it comes to a yandere, you don't even have to think about it. You just know from seeing the iconic yandere expression that has become a staple to the trope that they seriously would not betray the person they love, at least not intentionally. A few yandere characters do betray moments of inflicting harm to their loved ones, but usually it's in the interest of showcasing their love, which is no doubt 100% questionable, but the fact that they feel love for the character is still very much true, even if it has formed into a twisted variant of it, and even in some cases it's especially shown when a yandere will openly express they are willing to die if it benefits the one they love, which if that doesn't scream loyalty to the end, I don't know what does. So many thoughts can come to mind when a yandere gets revealed in a series, but by far one of my favorites I have thought before is, oh finally, the real entertainment's gonna start! Which doesn't always turn out to be the case, obviously, but I do feel like it is a true thought for a lot of fans of the yandere trope, as the anticipation of what is to come can cause the mind to race with so many possibilities, usually leaning more towards the creepy side. The horror genre is so popular due to the constant bloodbaths and the creepy vibes that can get the heart racing, and since a yandere usually has no moral compass, they can treat you to scenes that are encompassed by those same elements without it seeming out of character, feeding the desire for fans of horror while further characterizing the yandere trope. While not all yanderes may go down the bloody killing route like the trope is associated with, you will still get that kind of thriller vibe that is associated when the media is portraying a psychopath, and that can give you chills when the crazed character has a moment on screen, which can hardly be referred to as a dull moment. In this day and age, people like me often find entertainment from characters who push beyond the boundaries of what is considered normal, and plenty of series will showcase that kind of character in scenes that make you feel uncomfortable but also intrigued at the same time, and because of that, you're going to want to see more of them on screen. While the origin of this kind of character can be dated way back in popular mythology, such as Pele, the Hawaiian goddess of lava who would trap the people she loved, or the Huldra of Scandinavian folklore who were fairies that would potentially murder if they were ever turned down, yanderes didn't get super popularized until anime introduced them more often in modern media. Longtime anime fans would often think of characters such as Yuno from Mirai Nikki, Misa from Death Note, or Lucy from Elfine Lied for their ruthless tendencies when it came to killing, while newer fans of anime would probably recognize the more sadistic charm from recent characters like Albedo from Overlord, Kurumi from Date A Live, or Jabril from No Game No Life. Hell, it's slowly becoming harder and harder to find a series that doesn't have at least one character who appears with some yandere tendencies, which is not a bad thing as the series benefits from having multiple kinds of tropes instilled into its characters. A long-going series especially has its moments where characters get introduced to represent this trope, even if sometimes it's only for an episode or two, but one of my favorite yanderes got introduced in one of my favorite ongoing anime series not that long ago, and as long as you haven't been living under a rock, you can probably guess that I'm referring to My Hero Academia's very own Himiko Toga. A minor spoiler warning here, just in case you don't want details about this character spoiled for you, please skip to the timestamp on screen. Toga made her first appearance towards the end of the second season of My Hero, but she really took the fanbase by storm when she sprung into action in season 3, capturing the hearts of many, including myself, when she showcased her yandere tendencies on screen. She radiates a mixture of cute and creepy perfectly, as she has a major obsession with blood, causing her to often cut up the people that she's interested in because she wants to see them bleed, and is very much attracted to the ideology of the hero killer Stain, who has killed plenty of people that he judged were being heroes for the wrong reasons, and later she even becomes attracted to Deku due to him constantly looking beat up from combat. Her backstory also raises some questions, as she seems to want to make friends while she's attacking Ochako and Sue, and this showcases her instability while also making you feel a bit sorry for her at the same time. While she may not follow the route of other yanderes who have a certain someone they would do anything for, the fact that she's so infatuated with blood causes her to appeal more to the horror genre loving fans, while her cute design appeals to the people who just like cute character designs, making her a perfect representation of a character who only has a good amount of yandere tendencies instead of adopting 100% of the trope. Look out, Deku, you have a troublesome yandere into you. Classic and modern video games are no exception to having yandere type characters, and sometimes whole games are centered around those kinds of characters because of how popularized they have become. Higurashi When They Cry is a very popular game series where these kinds of characters thrive in bloody confrontations, and a game like Doki Doki Literature Club goes a very complicated route about it, but still brilliantly showcases how far yanderes have come in this day and age. Also, if you couldn't tell from some of the footage I was using earlier, the yandere archetype isn't only limited to females either, even though they are more commonly referred to as such. Plenty of examples do exist of male yanderes in a series. In fact, I'm willing to bet you know way more characters that have yandere tendencies than you may think, as they can be from movies, books, television, and even popular video games for all ages. Let's take a look at one example from a very popular gaming franchise and who happens to be male as well. He is also actually way more than just that, as I'm talking about the Koopa King himself, Bowser from the Mario franchise. Wait, don't click away from the video just yet. Hear me out. You're probably wondering how such an iconic staple from a Nintendo franchise could possibly be considered a yandere, but let's take a real close look at how Bowser goes about his actions towards Princess Peach. In almost every mainline Mario game he appears in, he's usually invading the Mushroom Kingdom in order to kidnap the princess, which often results in a lot of destruction of the landscape and many Toads fleeing in fear for their lives. Now, one can argue that Bowser could be doing all of this in order to gain power over the Mushroom Kingdom, and while that is probably part of it, why would he want to marry Peach in Super Mario Odyssey then? He could have just as easily imprisoned her in his castle filled with hundreds of his minions if it was only just a simple power grab, and with how rejected he feels at the end of the game, it further solidifies my point that he does actually have real feelings for her regardless of social status. The fact he would even go so far in the first place, regardless of Peach's objections to the marriage, also shows the instability underneath his rough exterior and is more than enough evidence to show that Bowser is indeed a yandere who is madly in love with a princess. That was one of the many examples of how having a character with yandere tendencies in any kind of story can indeed help it chug along in popularity and can also be a learning experience for the viewer when it comes to unhealthy behavior. Seeing the dark backstory behind a character who eventually becomes a yandere is always fascinating, especially when you are so invested in the character already, but it could also be a moment of relatability depending on your own life. Which, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying everyone exhibits unhealthy behaviors just because of their past, but some people when something traumatic happens feel lost, and anything that can make it worse could potentially cause a person to spiral out of control to the point where they can't tell the difference on what would be morally right or wrong to do. When you see these kinds of characters who have no morality left go about their actions in dark, twisted ways, you may start to think about your own moral compass, and that helps you understand unhealthy behaviors such as letting your obsessions become who you are, which is a life lesson everyone needs to hear about at some point in their life. Remember, admire the fictional yandere characters, not the real ones. Well, those were all the reasons why I love yanderes and only some of the possible examples I could have used for this video. Maybe I can make a future list of my favorite yanderes in another video if the demand is high enough? But anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I was super excited for months at the idea of making a video on this topic, and I'm so happy it's finally released. And it was also a nice break from my reviews. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps me know if you enjoy these kinds of videos from me, and if you are new here, consider hitting that subscribe button because I should be back mid-November for my next anime review. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get the hell out of this house. Oh god!